2 days after my wedding, I sat down at my laptop expecting a heartfelt message from my parents. Maybe a blessing, maybe a photo, something warm. Instead, what flashed across my screen stopped my breath. An invoice, itemized, detailed, cold. Every flower arrangement, every rental chair, every appetizer accounted for as if I was some stranger they catered an event for, not their daughter. And at the bottom, in bold, unapologetic numbers, $36,000. My stomach dropped so hard it felt like the floor opened beneath me. This from the same parents who had gifted my sister $400,000 for her own wedding. Tom, my husband of barely 48 hours, froze beside me. "Elena, what is this?" he whispered. At that moment, I thought the bill itself was a betrayal. I didn't realize the real blow was still on its way, delivered by a pounding on my front door. I grew up in a quiet, meticulously groomed suburb where every house looked like it had been cut from the same template. Perfect lawns, seasonal wreaths hung right on time, matching silver SUVs along every driveway. My parents, Daniel and Marilyn Ward, blended into that world effortlessly. To anyone watching from the outside, they were the polished couple other families admired, successful, gracious, eternally composed. If you didn't know us well, you'd assume we were close. Happy, normal. But behind closed doors, everything revolved around my older sister, Lily. 4 years older, always glowing, always admired. My parents adored her openly. They celebrated her grades, her trophies, her every accomplishment as if she were their personal miracle. When Lily wanted a new phone, she had it within a week. When she wanted new clothes, Mom whisked her to the mall. I was a kid who grew into Lily's hand-me-downs, the one who learned to stretch jeans across 3 school years. I started working at 16, not because they pushed me to, but because it was the only way I could afford things they refused to buy. They called it teaching responsibility. Back then, I actually believed them. Their favoritism wasn't loud or cruel. It was quieter, more suffocating than that. A closed door, a soft pat on Lily's shoulder, a gentle excuse made on her behalf. Holidays were planned around Lily's preferences. The restaurants, the activities, even the movies. I learned to stay small, to blend into the background. By the time I moved to the city for college and eventually became a software engineer, independence had become my armor. And for the most part, it worked. I built a solid life, even if part of me still wondered why the people who raised me always seemed to look right past me. Then I met Tom Alvarez, the man who is now my husband. Tom came from a warm, grounded family, one that welcomed me with a kind of natural affection I had never known. His mother hugged me the first time we met. His father actually listened when he asked questions. His siblings treated me like I had always been one of them. Tom saw the quiet wounds in me too, the practiced calm, the instinct to shrink, the way I brushed off small pains as if they were nothing. He didn't let it slide. He learned me. So when he proposed last year, it felt like stepping into a gentler life. My parents reacted with a kind of enthusiasm that startled me. They asked about the venue. They gushed over catering options. They insisted, without hesitation, that they wanted to pay for the entire wedding. Considering they gave Lily $400,000, their offer shouldn't have surprised me, but it did. Not because of the money, but because of how genuine they seemed. For once, it felt like they wanted to treat me the way they treated her. And I let myself believe them. I shouldn't have. Our wedding was small, warm, and exactly what Tom and I wanted. A quiet garden outside the city, soft lights overhead, music drifting lightly through the night. My parents arrived early. They hugged me, complimented everything, and happily paid the remaining balances with cheerful enthusiasm. Lily's wedding had made the society pages. Mine was simple, but honest. Mine felt real. At the reception, I saw my mother wipe her eyes as Tom and I danced. I saw my father clap Tom on the back and praise his vows. And for a brief, fragile moment, I dared to believe the distance between us might finally be fading. I went to bed thinking something in my family had gently shifted. 2 days later, that illusion shattered into pieces. Surrounded by half-open gifts and stray ribbons, I opened my laptop thinking my parents had sent a thank you note or a picture from a ceremony. The subject line, wedding payments, didn't alarm me. I assumed it was a receipt for their own records. But when the email opened, the air around me seemed to tighten. It wasn't a receipt. It was a full, itemized bill. Every floral centerpiece, each bouquet tallied as a separate charge. Every rented chair, every appetizer, even the string lights, all neatly typed, all perfectly totaled. $36,000. I stared at it for a full minute without moving. My brain simply refused to absorb it. Tom walked over with 2 mugs and froze mid-breath the moment he saw the screen. "Elena, what is this?" "I don't know," I whispered. "I don't understand." But I did. Deep down, I absolutely understood. This wasn't new. This was the same old pattern, dressed up in prettier clothes. My phone buzzed. A message from my mother. "Hope you received the invoice. Please take care of this soon." We agreed this was a responsible thing to do. Responsible. The word twisted something inside me. They had insisted on paying. I had never asked. I had never expected them to match what they gave Lily. I never kept score. But this felt like they had set a trap and waited for me to step into it. Tom paced, running a hand through his hair. "They can't be serious. Elena, this is insane." But my parents were always serious when it came to money, especially when using it to control who received it. I reread the email again and again, hoping for some hint it was a mistake, a joke, anything. But the truth was right there. The warmth from the wedding wasn't real. It wasn't love. It was performance. And the moment the bill came due, the mask fell off. That evening, as the sun slipped behind the buildings outside our window, I sat at the table replaying old memories that suddenly felt painfully sharp. Lily getting the newest phone while mine had tape holding the corners together. Lily receiving brand new clothes while mine came folded in a donation bag. Lily being handed $400,000 with pride, while I was now handed a bill. But for the first time in my life, I didn't swallow the pain. I didn't tell myself I was overreacting. I didn't excuse it as a misunderstanding. This wasn't a mistake. It was a message, and it was a turning point I didn't know I'd been waiting for. I didn't sleep the night the invoice arrived. Tom tried to pull me into his arms, tried to comfort me, but my mind kept looping through the same thoughts, the cold list, the sterile tone, the expectation. All the years I convinced myself the imbalance wasn't as bad as it felt. By morning, something inside me had settled into a quiet clarity. Not numbness, just truth. If this was who my parents chose to be, then I had to decide who I would be in response. Tom sat across from me at the kitchen table, worry softening his features. "What do you want to do?" "I'm going to pay it," I said. He blinked. "Elena, you don't owe them this." "I know." My voice was steady, steadier than I felt. "But I'm paying it anyway. Not because I owe them, but because I'm done letting them use money as a leash." I took out my checkbook. Writing the full amount in neat strokes felt strangely empowering. For the first time, I wasn't bargaining, or trying to earn approval, or pretending things had ever been balanced. Tom squeezed my hand. "If you need me, I'm right here." I nodded, grateful, and slipped the check into an envelope. But I wasn't done. I wrote a letter, measured, honest, painfully clear. I told them how deeply the invoice had hurt, how their offer had felt like a setup, how the bill wasn't just a charge, it was proof of a lifetime of favoritism and emotional manipulation. I wrote that I would never again accept money, assistance, or gifts with conditions. I wrote that I was rejecting any future inheritance. And then I wrote the sentence I never imagined myself writing. "This will be our final financial interaction." I sealed the envelope and mailed it before doubt could creep back in. The rest of the day, my phone stayed silent. No message from my mother, Marilyn. No call from my father, Daniel. The silence should have been peaceful. Instead, it felt like a storm cloud waiting to burst. The storm hit the next morning. My phone exploded with messages from extended family, an aunt I hadn't spoken to in years, cousins who barely remembered my birthday, even a distant uncle from across the country. Every message said some version of the same thing. How could you do this to your parents? They were trying to teach you responsibility. You're being dramatic. You owe them an apology. I stared at the screen in disbelief. My parents had wasted no time flipping the narrative. Tom looked at my phone like he wished it would burst into flames. "Block them. All of them. I didn't. Not yet. I needed to see how far they'd go. Then an email arrived from an address I didn't recognize at first. A work account. It was from my mother. Elena, the invoice wasn't real. It was a lesson. You weren't supposed to take it literally. We planned to surprise you with a $100,000 gift after you showed you could be responsible. Please don't overreact. I reread those lines 3 times. A lesson, a test, a conditional reward, obedience disguised as generosity. Tom read over my shoulder and muttered, "Unbelievable." I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my banking app and deposited the check they'd given me months earlier for wedding-related costs, money I'd never touched. I wanted it cashed immediately before they had the chance to tear it up and spin another story. Their test was over. My answer was final. That evening, my phone buzzed again, this time with a number I recognized. My father's younger brother, Uncle Aaron, a man who always lingered at the edges of family gatherings, quiet and observant. When I answered, his voice was calm, weighted. "Elena, I heard what's going on. I've been where you are." And suddenly, everything sharpened. My family had done this before. I wasn't the first. And if I didn't break the pattern, I wouldn't be the last. I met Uncle Aaron the next afternoon at a small corner cafe. He stirred his coffee slowly, eyes locked on the swirling cream. "Your grandparents did the same thing to me," he said. "They used money to control everything. When I pushed back, they turned everyone against me." A cold shiver traveled down my spine. "So it's a pattern." He nodded. "And your parents learned it perfectly." The truth didn't make the situation less painful, but it made it unmistakably clear. I wasn't fighting one bill. I was fighting decades of conditioning. When I left the cafe, I finally knew what had to come next. The moment I stepped out of the cafe, the cold air hit my face like a wake-up call. For so long, I'd been walking around with blurry vision, trying to convince myself my parents' behavior was complicated, nuanced, maybe even unintentional. But now the truth stood in front of me with perfect clarity. This wasn't new. This wasn't accidental. This was generational. And I was standing at the crossroads where the cycle finally cracked. As I walked home, anger didn't lead me. Grief didn't either. What I felt was something steadier, something sharper. Resolve. I was done reacting to my parents. I was done trying to decode them. I was done shrinking, apologizing, and bending myself into shapes just to earn the bare minimum. By the time I reached my front door, my choice was already made. Tom was waiting for me, perched on the couch with anxious eyes. "How did it go?" I sat beside him and told him everything, what Uncle Aaron had revealed, the history I'd never been told, the generational mold my parents had stepped into without a second thought. Tom listened like he always did, fully, without interruption, without doubt. When I finished, he exhaled slowly. "So, what now?" I looked at him, my voice low but unmistakably sure. "Now I put boundaries in place they can't twist, break, or negotiate." The next morning, I started with a wedding. For months, my parents had used their contribution as leverage, offering, withdrawing, attaching conditions, using money the way some people use chains. If this wedding was going to be the start of my married life, then it wasn't going to be built on manipulation. I opened my laptop and rewrote every contract, every vendor arrangement, every expense plan. Our wedding would be funded by us, not them. No strings, no conditions, no hidden hooks waiting to pull tight. Tom placed a hand on my shoulder. "Are you sure? That's a lot." "Yes," I said quietly. "I want a marriage, not a debt." I spent the next few days returning every check, every gift, every financial tie they had ever used to keep me in line. Not angrily, not spitefully, just conclusively. Every envelope I mailed felt like a weight sliding off my chest. And then I wrote the message I had avoided my entire adult life. I will not be controlled by money. Not anymore. I sent it to both my parents. I expected silence. I did not expect the fury that followed. It started with a text from my mother, short, clipped, soaked in indignation. "You're being ungrateful. After everything we've done for you." Then a second, "Lily never treated us like this. Why are you attacking us?" Then a third, "You're making a mistake you can't undo." My father chimed in too, his tone colder, more calculating. If you reject our support, don't expect us to fix things for you later. We won't rescue you when you fail. When I fail. Not if. When. The message sat on the screen like a prediction they were hoping would come true. Tom leaned over my shoulder, jaw tightening. They are trying to scare you. I know. Is it working? I met his eyes. No, because for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of losing them. I was afraid of losing myself. The next blow came faster than I expected. A group message, family included, again. My mother had painted me as ungrateful. My father had painted me as disrespectful. Together, they'd woven a story where they were the victims, and I was the unstable, entitled, dramatic daughter. The messages poured in like ants spilled from a broken nest. You're being immature. You embarrass your parents. Lily would never behave like this. Lily, always Lily. But I didn't engage. Not once. Not even with a single word. The silence I gave them was louder than any defense I could have written. A few days later, Tom and I attended a family dinner we'd been invited to months earlier, one of those events where everyone smiled while clutching grudges like pearls. The moment we walked in, conversations quieted. Eyes turned. Whispers unfolded like smoke. My parents were already there, sitting stiffly, their faces carefully arranged into masks of disappointment. My mother spoke first, her voice sugary and sharp. Are you ready to apologize? The room watched me, waiting, expecting, ready to judge. My heart beat once, slow and steady. No, I said gently. I'm not. She blinked, almost offended by my calmness. My father leaned forward. Then why are you here? Because I'm done avoiding conflict. I'm done pretending everything is fine. I'm done playing the role you assigned me. My mother's eyes narrowed. You're being dramatic. I breathed in. Not shaky. Not timid. Certain. No, I'm being honest. Tom took my hand under the table, grounding me. My father exhaled sharply. If you walk down this path, Elena, you will lose this family. The room went still. I scanned their faces, relatives who had stayed silent, people who had watched patterns repeat for years, people who had chosen comfort over truth. Then I said the words that ended everything and began everything. Then it won't be a loss. Gasps fluttered around the table. Shock. Outrage. A few faces, very few, showed something like understanding. I stood up. Boundaries aren't betrayal, I said softly. They are protection. For me. Tom rose beside me. We walked out together. And for the first time in my life, I felt free. The confrontation I'd been avoiding my entire life came sooner than expected. 2 days after the disastrous family dinner, Lily showed up at my door without warning. No text, no call, nothing. Just 3 sharp knocks that echoed through the hallway like accusations. Tom opened the door, and the moment she saw me behind him, her expression hardened. "Can we talk?" she asked sharply. It wasn't a request. It was a command she was used to having obeyed. Tom glanced at me. I nodded. He stepped aside but stayed close, close enough to intervene, far enough to let me stand my ground. Lily marched into the living room like she owned the place, arms crossed, chin lifted. "I'm only going to say this once," she began, turning to me with fire in her eyes. "You need to fix this." I almost laughed. Of course she wasn't here to understand. She was here to restore the balance that benefited her. Fix what, exactly? I asked calmly. She blinked, taken aback by my tone. She was used to me folding, apologizing, smoothing the rough edges she never had to deal with. "You embarrass Mom and Dad," she snapped. "You're blowing everything out of proportion because you're jealous." The word hit like a slap. Jealous. I repeated slowly. She rolled her eyes. "Yes, you always have been. The phone, the clothes, the allowance. God, Elena, it's so obvious. You're still mad that I got more attention growing up. Newsflash, I earned it." I stared at her. Not angry, not shocked, just done. "You didn't earn it," I said softly. "You were favored." Her jaw clenched. "That's not my fault." "No," I agreed, "but it is your responsibility to see it now." She scoffed. This is ridiculous. Mom told me the invoice wasn't real. It was a test. You failed it. That's on you. I felt Tom bristle beside me, but I raised a hand to keep him calm. A test? I said, is that what she told you? Yes, Lily said smugly. And if you hadn't overreacted, again, they were going to give you a huge gift. But you ruined it. I inhaled slowly. Her words didn't surprise me, but the confidence behind them did. Lily, I said, choosing each word with care. Do you hear yourself? You're defending a test designed to make me feel indebted. It wasn't like that, she snapped. You always assume the worst. Because the worst keeps happening, I replied. Her face twisted, frustration boiling over. God, you're so dramatic. Everyone thinks so. You turned a simple mistake into some big abuse narrative. You're making the family hate each other. I tilted my head. Did Mom tell them I returned every cent? Lily hesitated. Why would she tell them that? I'm guessing she didn't mention the letter either, or the part where she emailed me from her work account to cover her tracks. Lily's face flickered, just for a moment. Doubt. A crack. Then she shook it off. She was stressed. You pushed her. By paying the bill she sent me. I asked. Lily's jaw tightened. By making everything about you. There it was. The truth Lily had always lived in. If it wasn't about her, it was a problem. I stepped closer, not threatening, but steady. Lily, this isn't about the money. It's about a lifetime of being told I deserved less. She rolled her eyes again. Oh, please. You're exaggerating. Mom and Dad gave us both what we needed. No, I said. They gave you what you wanted. They gave me what was left. Silence. She looked at me then, really looked, and for a moment I saw something flicker in her eyes. Recognition? Guilt? Fear? I wasn't sure. But the moment passed. Her expression hardened into ice. You're destroying this family. Not Mom. Not Dad. You. I felt something inside me snap, not from pain, but from clarity. No, Lily, I said quietly. I'm exposing what was already broken. Her face reddened. You think you're so righteous. But look at you. You can't survive without drama. You always need to be the victim. I shook my head slowly. No, I'm finally choosing not to be one. Tom stepped forward and, voice calm but firm. Lily, this isn't a debate. Elena owes you nothing, not an explanation, not an apology. Lily's eyes darted between us, confused, angry, cornered by reality she didn't want to face. This is unbelievable, she muttered, grabbing her bag. When Mom and Dad cut you out, don't come crawling to me. I smiled, not cruelly, but with a peace I'd never had before. I won't. She froze at the door, stunned by the certainty in my voice. For the first time, I think Lily realized the truth. I wasn't chasing her anymore. Not her approval, not her closeness, not her love. She left without another word. The door clicked shut. The silence that followed wasn't heavy this time. It was freeing. Tom wrapped an arm around me. You okay? I exhaled, long, steady, unshaking. I think, I said, I finally am. After Lily stormed out, the house felt strangely still, like the world was holding its breath. For the first time in months, maybe years, there was no arguing in my head, no guilt twisting itself into knots, no desperate desire to fix anything, just quiet clarity. But peace never lasts long in a family built on control. The final blow came 3 days later. Tom and I had just finished dinner when my phone buzzed with a notification. Not a text, not a call, a voicemail from my mother. I stared at it for a long time before pressing play. Her voice filled the room, brittle, strained, but carefully performed, as if she knew she had an audience she needed to manipulate. Elena, this is getting out of hand. Your behavior is hurting the family. You need to stop this nonsense, apologize, and let us help you make things right. Help me. Make things right. Always phrased as if I had broken something. Then her voice sharpened. If you continue down this path, there will be consequences. We won't tolerate disrespect. Consequences. Like I was a child. Like I was property. Like I was still on their leash. I deleted the voicemail without saving it. Tom watched me quietly. You okay? Yes, I said, and I meant it. I'm done playing their game. I expected the next step to be silence. Instead, things escalated. The next morning, a letter arrived in our mailbox. Heavy envelope. Fancy stationery. My parents' handwriting. Tom opened it with me standing beside him. Inside was a message that looked like it had been written by a lawyer, but disguised as a family note. Because you have chosen to reject our support and distance yourself, we are updating our estate plan to reflect your recent actions. Translation. We will punish you financially unless you crawl back. Below that, we hope this decision encourages you to reconsider your behavior. A threat. Master's love. Wrapped in inheritance. Signed with pressure. Tom exhaled slowly. They really don't see it, do they? They see it, I said. They just don't want to lose control. I folded the letter, placed it back in the envelope, and slid it into a drawer marked "Do Not Open Again." That same afternoon, my father called. Not a message, not an email, a direct call. I let it ring once, twice, then answered. His voice was firm, rehearsed. Elena, you need to come home so we can discuss this properly. No, I said. He paused. Excuse me. No, I repeated. I don't want a discussion. You're being unreasonable. No, I said calmly. I'm being clear. A long silence stretched between us. Then, in a low voice meant to intimidate, he said, If you walk away from this family, don't expect to come back. And for the first time in my entire life, I didn't react with fear. You're the one choosing that, I said softly. Not me. He inhaled sharply, stunned that I hadn't cracked. Then he hung up. No goodbye. Just an ending. I stared at the dark screen for a long moment. Not sad, not relieved, just aware how final everything felt. Tom slipped his arm around me. You didn't lose them, he whispered. They lost the version of you they could control. I leaned into him, feeling something settle deep inside my chest. He was right.